Hey Punam, how are you?
Hey CJ, good to see you. So come with me, we're gonna do some chores if you don't mind.
Cool. Do you have a minute for Mentor Mondays?
Oh, I would love to spend a minute with you anytime, CJ, on a Monday or any other day of the week.
All right, let's start with an easy one. What did you want to do as a kid when you grew up?
Wow, only one thing, and one thing the whole childhood, and that was to be the world's best special ed teacher.
And
That was
how
it.
is it? How would you describe what it is that you do now?
Some days I feel like I do a little bit of special ed. I mean, I've had a career that included government affairs and community relations. How do I describe what I do now? Interesting question. On good days, I feel like what I do now is create change that makes the community a better place. On rougher days, I feel like I'm just on a treadmill, not doing much of anything. So I guess that's what I do now.
What are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned in business or life?
I've learned a lot of lessons, and the longer life goes on, the more lessons I seem to learn. I think probably the biggest lesson is clarity around where my power ends. So I feel like I have a superpower, but I've really come to humbly appreciate that it ends at the tip of my nose. And so I spent, several decades thinking that I could just arms akimbo, put on a cape and control that and make that happen my way and move that differently. And I've now come to appreciate that I don't have any power beyond my nose. And so I guess the wisdom is if I don't like what's happening, the first place I now go to seek an answer is in the mirror.
What are some key traits that a leader should have?
Key traits. So for me, leadership is literally the act of inspiring followership. That's what it is for me. And so the traits that a leader has are the traits that would inspire others. It is genuineness or authenticity. It is clarity and communication. It is something that feels like honor and integrity. It is consistency. It is being genuinely motivated to build others up, to create something that is greater as a sum of the parts than could be true of any individual contributor. So leadership is about inspiring followership. Anything that inspires followership, therefore, becomes the trait of great leaders.
What are you looking forward to in the future?
What am I looking forward to in the future? Well, I'm super jazzed about Ted Lasso, the next season coming out, so there's that. I think at this stage in my life, I don't declare what's going to happen next. And so it is a really cool thing to simply be curious about what's going to reveal. And so I think that's the thing that I'm most excited about is what's around the corner, down the bend. I have no idea.
How do you stay motivated when faced with a challenge?
How do you stay motivated when faced with a challenge? Now we have a poinsettia that's made it 7 months after Christmas, which is great. How do I stay motivated in the face of a challenge? I think for me, it is for me about perspective. If my perspective is large, challenges are relatively small. And so if I am feeling overwhelmed by challenges, for me, it's just a cue that my perspective is too small. And things that enlarge my perspective, gratitude for the things that I have, recognition of what is right in the world, those are things that expand my perspective. And when my perspective is bigger, my junk seems punier.
What's the most important question to ask a mentor?
These are great questions, CJ. I think, how do you manage fear? How have you dealt with fear?
How have you managed fear?
Touche, mister. So someone once said to me, a mentor of mine actually once said to me, defined fear, showed it to me as an acronym. And the acronym stood for false evidence appearing real. And I've never sort of forgotten that, because what I realized in myself is that most of the time, the things that I fear the most are things that I have just simply made up, I've projected, I've imagined. And so they become these big, hairy monsters that can completely overwhelm me. But they're projections, they're not real. And so that's been really helpful, false evidence appearing real. If I sit and say, let me inventory the evidence, it becomes real clear that it's all false, right? I now have the experience of 6 decades in my rearview mirror. And so when I have a fear that says, I will fail at this, I will then lose my job, be completely humiliated, lose respect to people I care for, I can now look in the mirror and ask myself the question, well, let's see, how many times has that actually happened to you in your entire life? And the answer is not even once. And so if the incontrovertible evidence of my life experience is that everything's going to be okay, then whatever the fear mongers are, I can just look at them and say, your projections, your false evidence appearing real. And so that has been helpful to me in just tamping down my own fear. And I think that's the biggest thing, is the recognition that it's not real, that it's stuff I imagine. And so if I can just find a way to separate out what is real and true from what I'm making up, then the monkeys somehow don't seem like they're going to destroy me completely.
Alrighty, Punam. Thank you for sharing some of your time and wisdom with us today. We'll see you soon.
I love you, CJ. Thanks for dropping by.
Of course. Bye-bye.